Okay, in a previous video, I mentioned this about a woman named Diva. She calls herself Diva Mom, but people just call her Diva. She won't go by her real actual name. She goes by Diva. She's proud of it. She wears it proudly. And that her husband, so she calls him her husband, is a lawyer who's seldom ever there. He's off working somewhere else. In his office in the big city. She lives in a small town in Victorson County, Texas. And it's not the best town either. And her son also lives there. Her son is in his young 30s. And now she is invited to his child's mother's home every year for the holidays. Well, she went there one time, and they weren't really happy about it. They didn't really like her, but they didn't make it known. They were very polite. But every time that she was invited, she would say she was at home waiting for her husband to come in. She didn't know when he would be there, what time he'd be there, and all of that. She would make excuses. But some things started to happen, and she said that she would be there for Thanksgiving that year. It was like a few years later. And, okay, I'm sorry I got distracted. There was a couple that kept just kind of, I don't know what in the world they were doing right in front of me, but they were looking at something. I don't know. And this is a nature preserve, so it's free park. So anyway, now I'm going to get on with her story. She's in 2021. She's 51, but this goes back usually. Goes back to, part of it goes back to 2020. Okay, and in where she lived in Victorson County, the whole county went under lockdown in 2020. Okay, and after that, they really didn't want anybody coming in to the county. They had actually started blocking it all off, and they went home big time lockdown. Okay, people from the outside, they weren't allowing them in. And anyway, her husband didn't get to go there in 2020 because of the county lockdowns. And like I said, he's a lawyer. She calls him her husband, but they aren't married. Now, she does live in Texas, and some would call it common law, but she's kept her name. He says, somehow, some way, he, kind of conned her into never having him on anything. When he met her, she had her own place, and it was in her name. They didn't get legally married, and he did not want her, telling people who he was, that he was her husband, because of common law issues and such. But, somehow he worked it. He conned her. He managed to, get her to do that. But anyway, to get on with it, in 2021, he made excuses. He made excuses. Even after, they had, he would have been able to come there, but, both of them had already had their, been vaccinated. But he refused, okay? And then there was just total silence from him. Just total silence. Okay. All right. Now, a diva is one I personally would see has histrionic behaviors. She is very loud. She's attention seeking. She's a bit of a mean girl, an adult mean girl. And she still dresses very provocative, and she always has. Like I said, very loud in the way she speaks, the way she dresses, the way she cackles. She doesn't really laugh; she cackles, and all of these things, and just kind of quite a bit obnoxious. Talks all about herself. She has like a blend of behaviors, narcissistic, histrionic blend of behaviors, and she's very easily influenced by people. Anyway, now, all the time that they had known one another, their son is, like I said, in his early 30s. And at this time, point, we're at early 30s. And now, when he would pay for, when he was always off working somewhere else, in the big city, that's where his office is. She never really connected the dots. But see, he was giving her money. He was always giving her cash, or like he'd give her credit cards to use for whatever she wanted, and things like this. But never like, when he'd come home, he, very seldom, sometimes for holidays, sometimes not, just whenever he could. But he never had her go there. And she was kind of blinded by all of this, and things like, him sending her cash, actually cash in the envelope. Let's see. Okay, I wrote some notes here so I remember some things. Well, so she worked. So she paid for all of, everything, out of her own checking account, or however it was, whatever, during all these years. She paid for it herself. She worked when her son got old enough, he contributed some. Their son, he was like still a child in his early 30s, didn't really want to, his name is Trey, their son. He never really wanted to, he never really got a good job and made good money. He just, whatever he could find at the moment, and then find excuses for not doing the job. And sometime he worked with his girlfriend, the mother to their child. Sometimes he did. And she owned her own delivery service, and sometimes he'd fill in and help her. Okay. Now she really, as far as Diva, between the two of them and everything, and before that, she earned enough, and her husband would give her, money whenever he was in, and all that. So she never really wanted for much. Plus, but she liked the extra money. Of course, that, to a married couple, they would have money together, and she would be able to spend some of her own money that she earned too. But when he stopped coming, like he didn't come during 2020, he didn't really give her much money. Then, especially in 2021, everything stopped. Everything came to a halt. And she wouldn't hear from him, and she couldn't reach him either. She'd call him at what she was told was his office. As a lawyer, he went from working for somebody, and then eventually some year he went to having his own practice. And so she would try to call him at office, and his phone number, and then at his office, he had already told her that all of his, when he's out, his office calls go to his phone, and all these things she told him, and she conned him, and he conned her into believing any kind of story he came up with, just whatever kind of lie. Okay, sorry, I was so distracted by some people. I don't know what they were doing. Really, I don't know what they were doing. Anyway, so the last time she actually spoke to him, he said, he wasn't coming back home, and he said that he had this really big trial, and that he really had to concentrate on it, and and then all of a sudden silence. So for a long while, and now what she didn't know about all this was that his business phone now, that more recent years, once cell phones became popular, when he said that he went from being working for a practice and then having his own, around that same time, he got 2 cell phones. And one was, he claimed was for his business, but she didn't know that it wasn't. It was just a second cell phone. And before then, he had used his phone number at his office, but it wasn't at his job. He used a fake phone number. It was really, what were they called? I don't know if they're still there. An answering service, and he would call into it, check up on it, or they would call him, and whatever it was, and he would call her from like a payphone. But she didn't know all that. Okay, I can remember a time when there were beepers, and some people would have it that, their service, some service would beep them whenever Or it couldn't work been that way. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But anyway, like I said, he lived in the big city. And anyway, they met at a festival in a place called Festive, Texas, which is within that same county. And when she was 18 years old. Okay, 18 years old. That's pretty young. And her parents made her move out then. 18, you're on your own. Once you're an adult, you're out kind of mentality. And when she was at 18, so at age 18, she went and, her parents made her move out, so she got herself a little apartment. And wherever, like I said, she pays for her own bills. And wherever she moved to, she moved from that little apartment to a house, then, she put it in her own name and all that. So, okay, let's see, I'm looking at my notes. And after they met and all, he would meet her at her place. Okay, now she wasn't one to go to the big city and, drive that far, because it's the closest place to that county, the big city they call it, is about 2-hour drive. That's the closest part. So to the whole county. And so it would have been like, say, 3 hours for her. And then 3 hours back. She just didn't want to do that. She saw no reason to. And she was overall kind of a little bit on the lazy side. And, thought of herself and was a diva, Okay. I am sorry. The sun was in my eyes. From the right, I didn't know that you were looking at my dashboard. And really, seriously, I couldn't tell. Then I started making another clip, and apparently there was a family got out, and I don't put other people's kids in my videos, and I couldn't tell that it was that was being in my videos. Oh my gosh, I got a new cell phone. We just got him connected yesterday. We got him about a week before. It was so much of a drama to try to get it started, both of us. And so I'm learning the ins and outs of it and how it works, and some of it's different. It's a new one, new model. So anyway, I don't know where I left off. I had to delete that clip, and it doesn't even delete like the same way as I'm used to, so I had to figure that one out. Anyway, so where was I? Oh my goodness. So I'm going to have to try. I don't even know what kind of visual effects it has, and I don't even know how it works at all around. I've been trying to see different things, and there used to be one, I think that was called Cartoon, and that one I could blur without having to go in, try to get a blur out, to, like kids or something. But it doesn't have it, it seems like. Anyway, so let me move on from that. But anyway, I think many of us know how, there are some people out there who are so manipulative that it becomes like like their victim would believe anything that they have to say. And they don't really question it. They don't sit back and say, wait a minute, that just doesn't sound right. Like, I've never been to the big city to see him, to see his place, you see, and things like that, and why he only comes here. He's my husband, and I can't take his last name, or we can't have shared bills. None of his bills, named on bills and stuff like that. But anyway, now her husband's name is Branson, and anyway. So he would tell, like, I think I was at the point where I was talking about, that he would tell her not to call him at work if possible, since they frowned upon that. That was before the age of the time that people had cell phones. He would just say, don't call me at work, because, they don't like that. And that's before he had his own practice. I think you call them practice, right? Law practice? I think so. And so like I said, when he got the cell phone, and then that's when he told her that he started his own practice, and said that for the clients he had convinced her that the kind of clients he had, that he had to travel a lot for them. So that was why, that he had his office in the big cities, because that way he could get more clients instead of, in that county where she lived, where it's not that heavily populated. And but he was often, you know, flying to different places because of the type that he did. He had conned her. Okay, and that's not, I don't like when it even hints at blaming the victim. And like, he conned her, he manipulated her. Some would say that, that she was so easily manipulated. Well, she is in a way, and but we don't want to blame a victim. But she is in a way because she's quite the histrionic. And yeah, they can, kind of go with whatever. Anyway, like I said earlier. Okay, but she did put his name whenever they had the child. Right after they met, she got pregnant with their son, Trey. And she put his name on the birth certificate, Branson's, but didn't know that it was fake. Okay, that was not his real name. So Earl, E-A-R-L, is his real name. But he told her that it was Branson, B-R-A-N-S-O-N. Okay. Now, like I said, in 2020, he couldn't leave. He couldn't go to go to her place, Branson, because of the lockdowns, the county lockdowns. And he said, he couldn't do that. They, going back and forth and all. And he wouldn't let her go and stay, finally, stay at, go and stay at his place in the big city. And that's when she started to wake up a little bit, when he, wouldn't let her, see the words, let her come and stay with him. She didn't even have his address, okay? But think, this can happen. This can happen, that some people are that easily manipulated. Okay, but like I said, I don't like to blame victims. But now the truth of it is, she's the lazy type. She didn't want to have to make an extra step, to have to drive that far, to have to go and put energy into it because she sees herself as a diva. She's supposed to be waited on. She's supposed to be there, and the queen, the queen diva. And really, she was, she loved his attention, the attention that he gave her, because when he would come to see her, he was giving her lots of gifts plus money, and all those years, and and that's what she loved. She loved his attention and his money. But when 2020 hit and all this started coming out, and slowly, him drifting off and all that, that's when she realized how quite naive she had been to what he was doing, how he was doing it, and how she was manipulated. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And this is a part of a hypothetical fictional series. As you probably can tell, it's a very rough draft. And read the disclaimers in the description box below this video on YouTube. And all is hypothetical, fictional, and all that. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Talk to you on another video. Bye.